Hi guys, welcome back to the fourth video in this series. My name is Henry and we are in the REST API series with the Django REST framework, and in this very video we are going to create the functionalities for user to be able to update their profile and also be able to create a chef book for those that are interested or those that are chef that want to create a chef book. So we're going to create those pieces of functionality. So in this very video we're going to start creating our endpoint. We're going to start working from the view.py file, so creating our endpoint and all that. So heading to our view, we've not done anything. We're going to create our very first view for users to update their profile. So I'm going to use a class-based view to implement our view. You can also use function-based view if you want. The Django REST framework actually provides a couple of facilities for us to implement views. We have the generic API views that we can use to implement views with few lines of code, and we also have the view set also, which is also a simpler way for us to implement views, especially code operation, which is a create, update, and then delete view. So if you head over to the Django documentation, if you go to API guide, and you can check out the view, you can see how to implement a class-based view by using the API view class, which is actually extended the default Django view class. It's like a base implementation of the API view. Alright, so with this view you can actually implement your different request endpoints like get, post, put, and so many other like this, just like you use your base view class. Also similar things, and also these are views have several attributes that you can use to actually control the functionalities of the view. Alright, so we'll be seeing how we'll make use of some of these classes, and also we'll use the base view first, and maybe later on we'll also look at how we can use the generic API view. So I strongly advise that you read through this documentation. It will really help you a lot to understand implementation of API views. But aside that, let's dive into our code editor and start building our endpoint. So first of all, we need to import the API view. So we're going to say for the API view. Alright, so I can start creating our view class. Say class, we're going to call this user profile. Alright, so what we want to do, we want to implement two endpoints in one view. First of all, we need to get the user profile, because for us to actually update the profile, we need to actually first of all get the profile so we can update it. So we need the previous data to actually update it. So we're going to provide the API view class. So once we extend this class, now we can implement our different API endpoints. So you can define the get just like in our, so we can pass in the args and keyword args, but and in here we can query for the profile that we want to update. First of all, we need to get the profile, and we also need to import the profile model. So we just import the profile model by saying from. Alright, so you can see that's user. Alright, so once we get this user with this profile, we need to also call the serializer. So we need to import the serializer by saying from .serialize video. Alright, so we can serialize, so create a variable called serializer, and we'll set it equals to the profile serializer, and here we want to pass the profile instance that we want to serialize. Alright, so we are actually serializing this profile instance that we query for from our database response that we want. So we need to import response from REST API. So if you respond object, alright, so we import the respond object, return the response. So it should be the response. First of all, we need to return the data back from the serializer. It has a data property which will give us the data that is being serialized, And apart from that, we need to pass in our status. So we need to import status also, sorry, from REST statics. So status property equals to start that we can use. Then this is actually a get request, so if the get request everything works fine, it should be okay. All right, so that now there are some properties that we need to set in this class, because for us to actually get the request dots, save the request by user, the user have to be logged in. So in that case, we need to actually provide the permission class for this view. So provide the classes, which is a list, so we can have several permission classes. So we have some built-in permission class that the Django REST framework provides for us. And also, like I said in some of our previous video about the authentication, I say you can set your authentication globally, and you can also set your authentication in your view. There's an authentication class in your view. That's if you have an API where some certain views can be accessed by anonymous user, that is users that are not logged in. So if you have such views, you want to set your authentication class in your API, in your view, which is also a list, and this can be any kind of authentication like the token authentication. So we need to import this token authentication also, because we are actually using token authentication in our own API. Though we've already set the default authentication class in our setting. The difference between this authentication class and permission class is the authentication class is only checking for your input authentication credentials. It does not actually do any authorization stuff. It only check if your credentials are correct. That's what the authentication does. But while the permission class actually is what restricts the user from accessing some setting of views, or so it's actually the permission class talks about the authorization, while the authentication class is just like credential checking. Check if the credentials are correct. If the credentials are correct, pass it over to the permission classes to check if the provider of the credentials has permission to actually view this view. So that's what these two classes are for. The authorization class that we're going to be needing is authenticated. So we have several permission class. We check so if we go to permission, we have the permissions, so we can check out the permissions, and you can see where you can see where they implement the permission class. And one of the permission class that we have is authenticated, which is imported from Django.permissions. Alright, so yes, these are the list of permission. Allow any is a permission class, is authenticated a permission class, is admin is a permission class, and these are the default permission class that is provided. I will also write our own custom permission, which we'll be doing in later video. Alright, so for the authentication class are the defaults like token authentication and session authentication, which we've go through before. So we need to really import these two. So from REST API token authentication, and also from REST API.permission is, you can see it's giving us the option, so it's authenticated. Alright, so once we get those values, we can actually use them in view. Alright, so once that is set, then we can now start implementing the update functionality, which is to update, we'll be using the put request. Right, so in here we'll kind of first of all get the profile also that we want to update. So we can just simply grab this line of code, because we also need to get the profile which we want to update, and we also need the serializer, and in this case we can also call the serializer. In this case we'll pass the profile that we want to update with the new data that we want to use to update the profile, which is going to be in our request. So it's going to be request.data. Alright, so we can access any post data in our REST API through request or data. serializer. So in this case, we're going to check if the serializer values or if the serializer data is valid. So we'll call the isValid method. Now this isValid method actually calls a validate method. The validate method is the method that actually contains the different validations that will be run against the serializer data. So in some cases, we will need to override the validate method in a case where we want to provide our own custom validations. So we can do that. So if you want to do that, you have to write the validate method in the serializer, provide your own custom validations. But in this case, the default validations, which is like the requested field, check if the requested field are provided, basic validations will be run against the serialized data. And here we want to raise a session. Alright, so if the serialized data are valid, we want to save them. So .save, this is what we call the update method. Need to also override the update method, because this save we actually call the update method. Alright, so before that we need to return a respond and also the status code, which is going to be equals to state okay. If everything is fine, we should have an okay. Then error or something, we want to return an error response also. So also status is we want to return bad requests 400. Alright, so the update method, because this save method is going to call the update method, so we need to override it to return the objects that we want. So we'll do that in serializer. So we'll go to serializer update method. Alright, so this takes in self instance, which is the previous data, that is the previous profile info that is there, validated data, which is the validated data from the serializer. So if that is the case, we want to set the get instance, the validated is the input data that is coming from the request data. So we are setting the instance.bio equals to that. Then if for some reason that this data was not presented, we want to make the default one remain. Alright, so because you're actually performing an update, let's say maybe the user has already updated the profile picture before and he wants to change it, and some reason maybe he refused, he didn't provide the bow, want to use the initial bow also. That's for the update. So similarly we're going to do for other fields. So I'm going to just copy this, and secondly, before I forget, we are going to kind of set the parser for the image. Alright, so these are the fields I want to update. I want to return the instance. So that's it. We return to head back to the here. We need to kind of provide the parser for the image, because remember everything is in JSON, so our content type is in JSON. So and we are asking to provide the profile image, which is an image file. So the parser that will be able to parse the image, so we need to provide the parser classes, which is a list, and you can take a couple of parsers. So we're going to say font parser, and also we need the multi-part parser. We need to import them, so I'll quickly do the from RESTful one multi-part parser. So those are the three parsers that we're going to be using, because in this example now we are not only providing image file, so we are providing both image and text, and also the JSON parser, because we also will be passing JSON data to it. So we will say the parser class that we'll be needing for us to able to upload image along with our text. Alright, user that is performing this operation, because if you see the update method that will arrive, we didn't provide the user. So in the serializer.save, we can just set the user equivalent to array, we need to set up our URL. So we'll go to the url.py file. We have import from the views there, because here we are going to create a path, ID of the user, which is the primary key of the user. Alright, so I go to /auth/user, followed by the ID of the user, followed by profile. Alright, I think that will be a better match. Then as view, profile. Alright, that's good. So once we save this, I think we are good to test our API now. So if we head over to our browser, we're going to use Postman to make our test and to get the user. Authenticate credentials. Oh yes, we need to log in, because remember we specify permission for is authenticated, so we need to try and log in first. So we'll head back and first of all let's just go to the login endpoint, so we are making a post request to admin. Yeah, I guess everything is correct, so we can send a request now. Now we have our token, so we can use this token as part of our request. We'll put it in the header. We'll head over to the header, here, and here we want to set the key to token. Alright, so we can send our request again. We have an assertion error, so let's try and find out what's wrong. Okay, yeah, we have the error here. It's supposed to be model, not models. That's a mistake. So we'll save that. That's why we're having that issue. So now we can resend our request. Alright, these are the values that we are having. Perform the update now, so we can go to make a put request and head over to the body. In here we can provide the updated data, and for us to provide image in yes, you can see we change it to file. It will allow us to select a file, and let's choose a kind of simple profile image that we can use. So let's choose this as a profile image. Then we need to provide a phone. Perform our updates now. These are the fields that needs to be updated. So this time we can make our request again and send our request. Alright, we have 200 back. That means everything was updated, and we have our object bar. You can see the bio, you can see the paths to the image, and you can see the phone number, the country, and the user's object. Alright, so you can see we can perform our update. Change it to get one more time, just to get the profile. You see you get our object back. Alright, that guys, we can update our profile now. That's working fine. So lastly, before we end this video, we want to quickly create the functionalities for users to create a chef book. This view, I'm going to use the generic API view. Alright, so the generic API view, like I said earlier, is a class-based view provided by the Django REST framework for kind of that help us to write views with less code. And we have several generic API views. We have the create API view, which handles only creates requests, like the post request alone, while we have the list API view, we have the retrieve API view, and we have the destroy API view, which is to delete and update, and so many API views that we can just use with just few lines of code, like 5 lines of code. We can get a full view working. Alright, so we're going to be using the create API view. If you click the create API, we say provide a post method handler, and this view extends from the generic API view and the create model missing. If you check the generic API view, it says this class extends the REST API view, which is the one we used before. Alright, attribute that comes along the query set, we need to specify a query set so that it will use, say the query set should be used for returning objects from this view. So the object that should be returned is based on the query set that is being set, and we have the serializer class for us to specify a serializer. So we have a lookup feed or PK feed for a detailed view, and so many features. So I advise you to go through them, and we also have methods that comes along with the generic API views that we can use to override certain functionalities, like the get query set. It's a return the query set that should be used for list view, and that should, just like we have our normal Django generic class based view, same with the API generic views. Also some important method, which is the perform create, perform update, and perform destroy. These are the method that we can override whenever we are using some of these generic views, like the create generic views. This method is called by the create method. If you look at the source code of the generic API view, you understand this create perform create is a method that the default create method call, and this is responsible for actually saving the serializer and data method. So maybe add behavior before or after saving an object. So we'll be using this very method in this case, because what we want to do is we want to create a chef, and also we want to update the user model, because in our user model we specify a feed called chef. If you check our user model, we have a feed called chef. I want to change this feed to true whenever a chef model is created. So in that case, here we need to first of all import, we want to import the create API view. Alright, extend that. We just need to specify our serializer class, and that should be our chef serializer. That's what we also need to specify query sets, because it's using these query sets to determine the objects that will be returned. Alright, so this will return the object for us. We need to import the chef book. So in our model, imported profile, we can just call the next we can specify the serializer class. The permission classes is authenticated, because you need to be authenticated for it to actually perform this action. Alright, so actually with this 3 lines of code, we've actually got our basic create view working. So all the logic that would have written for our post request, all these are encapsulated inside these 3 lines of code. Alright, but for us to actually update our user model to change our chef to true, we need to override the perform create method. Here we're going to call the serializer.save the chef feed, set it equals to the self.request.user. So that is first. So once we've done that, we also want to update the user objects. We can just see user underscore object is equivalent to object instance. I want to user underscore object dot is chef, because by default is false. So that's the only update we want to do. After we've done that, we also want to save the user object, the URL for this class. So we grab this class and as URL setup. I think we are good to go now. So once we have our URL set up and we also have our create method set up, we can test that if a user can create chef now. So if we head over to Postmap, we can go to if we are intending to make a post request, but if we try it like this, it won't work because we are not authenticated. So let's try it first and see. If we head over to the body, the required fields for these are just the name, and let's say we prefer the name, let's call it Harris request. Authentication credentials we need provided, that's good. So next we just need to try and log in this header. So if we head back to where we have a request in our header, in here we want to provide the authorization header and want to set. If we send now, you can see our object was created. So if we head back to our created a chef book for this user, which is our admin user. So if we check our admin user and let's check the value for his chef, we can see it's checked, that means it's true. Alright, so that's good. And if you check our chef book, we can see we have the Harry's kitchen here. Alright, so in our next video we pick up from where we stop. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. See you guys in the next video.